Well, thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Pamela, for that very nice introduction. And thank you for the board and everyone who helped put this event on. I'm sure all of you here sitting down today has gained a lot already from this conference and the speakers that we've already heard from. Is that true? Yes? Well, I've loved listening to the speakers that I was able to hear from and listen to, and it's just been an incredible event already. A friend of mine, Matt Fradd, some of you may know him. He's a friend of mine that is an advocate in this space and has been for many years. He once said at a conference like this, he said, you know, some people go to Comic-Con to find their people. Some people go to, sporting events to find their people. And I go to anti-porn events to find my people. So I feel very much at home with all of you here, and you guys are my people, so I love it. Years and years ago, so as Pamela mentioned, Fight the New Drugs started 15 years ago, and I've been able to go around the country, around the globe, speaking to youth groups, around to college campuses and community groups on this topic of pornography and the challenge that we face today that is unique to previous generations. And after one of these events, in Southern California, I don't remember exactly what city, but a man, probably in his 60s at the time, this is maybe, I want to say almost 10 years ago now that this happened. So this man came up to me, and I could tell he wanted to speak more privately, and after the event, there were some people that wanted to talk, so I concluded with them, and I came over more privately, and he shared an experience with me. He said, I've struggled with pornography for as long as I can remember, for so long. It's been just a plague that I've dealt with. And he said, it started primarily when I turned 16 years old. My mother came into my bedroom on my 16th birthday and brought in a box of pornography magazines and set them on her bed, on his bed, and said, "It's time you became a man." And then she walked out. I can see all of your eyes are like, what? What? Isn't that crazy? I mean, just for a moment, all the men here in this room, when you turn 16, how many of you had a similar experience where your mom brought in a box of pornography magazines and says, "It's time to become a man"? Anybody? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. So how many mothers, when your sons or daughters turn 16, how many of you showed up on their 16th birthday and dropped a box of magazines, pornography magazines, and said, "It's time you became an adult"? Not one. Oh, thank goodness. Because can you imagine if that was like more normal? Can you imagine if that was like a common experience for you? What would the impact be if that was like a regular thing? Like it was for this guy. And of course, your minds are already going there, right? The reality is that is kind of the world that every young person, particularly young boys, are experiencing. Except a few differences, key differences. Number one, it's not a box of 100 magazines. It's unlimited. It's not at the age of 16. It's much, much younger. And it's not the content that once was bare-chested women in cornfields. It's much more extreme. And so you can imagine that things today are it's no wonder. It's no wonder that we struggle in the ways that we do today, because the environmental conditions in which we live for this generation that is dealing with this to an intensity and scale that no generation in the history of the world has ever seen is setting us up to struggle in this way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. I want to share a few slides here. So again, this is something that we have seen. Let's see, I might have to switch over to this. We have seen kind of grow over the last little while. So back in 2008, 14% of young boys, 12 or younger, had been exposed to pornography, according to this recent study. 2016, it jumped up to nearly 50%. 2019, young boys particularly, 65%. And 2020, it jumped up to nearly 90%, 83%. So again, the exposure and the access is unique. I can't tell you how many parents I talk to and have spoken to over the years and years that I've spoken to parents that say, what's the big deal? It's been around, like it was around when I was a kid. I'm fine. And of course, we know that just that things have evolved so much that this is warranting a new kind of conversation. I love this study here, looking at parents surveyed. 75% of parents identified that they didn't believe that their child had, in fact, been exposed to pornography. These are the parents that say, some parents, 25% were like, yeah, my kid has been, we're dealing with it, or we saw it, or we know about this. But 75% said, you know what, nope, my child, not yet. I mean, we probably need to be on the lookout, but not yet, luckily. Of those parents, that 75%, 53% of those parents' children had actually been exposed to pornography, according to following up with those actual youth. So again, we're kind of in the dark with regard to what's actually occurring in this current situation. And we have to think about, what does access to this type of material do to particularly young people, but what does this do to us generally as a society? But what does it do to our mental health? What does it do to us as individuals? What does it do to our psyche? What does it do to our ability to develop and grow and connect with others? And mental health is a huge topic today. And a lot of people talk about how pornography makes your mental health worsen, right? A lot of people turn to pornography as a coping mechanism to think like, you know what, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm bored, and they turn to pornography as a coping mechanism, or as a way to numb out or detach from those challenges. And again, the research suggests that it just makes those challenges worse. People feel more lonely, and they feel more depressed as they engage. But the reverse is also true. And Dan and Jill this morning talked about this, and I loved it because we talked about pornography as a symptom. And there's often deeper challenges and deeper issues at stake. And I kind of want to talk about mental health generally for a moment so that we can get at the roots of these issues. This study back in 2003, and I know that's like 2003. Some of you weren't even born back in, just kidding. I hope all of you were born back in 2003. But 2003, this is a long time ago, but I'm going to update it in the next slide. But look at this study. When you look at it, break it up to age cohort, looking at depression as it relates to different age groups. Because we often talk about how, a certain percentage, you can see different stats of 1 in 5, 1 in 4 individuals struggle with depression. But when we break it down to age cohort, it reveals a different story, another story. So individuals 60 and older, about 12% in their lifetime had experienced major depressive disorder, according to this research done by JAMA, and about 20% ages 45 to 59. And just look at just how this is shifting, like a kind of a hockey stick. The younger generations are dealing with mental health challenges like the generations prior have not experienced, not to that extreme. And if we look at this updated data, this is the same exact data, 2023. Let's update it to 2020, and that age cohort, almost every group doubled in that time period. So this is something like 57% in 18 to 29 years old. Now, these are major issues that you were thinking, wow, this is a challenge that we now need to address and face. 1 in 4 teenagers seriously contemplate suicide. 1 in 3 teenage girls. And we think about that from a class of 100 students. That's what 22% looks like. This is not okay. This is not helpful. And we're sitting kind of in a room and we're thinking like, hey, everything's okay. We're all good. Nothing to see here. And a lot of people, and not here in this room, we're awake. But a lot of people in society were like, everything's fine. Don't be old-fashioned. Get with the times. We're okay. With regard to pornography, with regard to a lot of issues, we just kind of like keep going. And we know these challenges are mounting. And the question is, how are they related? How are they connected? How do they relate to one another? Now, I have 4 daughters. That's all I know how to make. I don't know how to make boys. I just know how to make girls. I have 4 daughters, and they are amazing. Oh, they're the life of my life. I mean, they are my life, and I am incredibly committed to this and other causes, adjacent causes, because the world that they have been given is one that deserves our attention to start to fix its problems, because they are inheriting this world that is setting them up to struggle in ways that even my generation didn't have to deal with nearly the things that they are going to have to deal with and that are dealing with. So I'm incredibly committed, and I have that motivation. A lot of you are thinking of your families, your spouses, your children, your grandchildren. You're thinking, absolutely, we've got to do better. We've got to do something, right? And that's what drives me. And this is a rare opportunity where I get to take some of the work that I've done with Fight the New Drug and the years of working with hundreds of thousands of young people, and through online, even to the millions of individuals, where we learn from them, we grow from them, we're able to understand the situation, as well as the work that I've done with another company that I started called Impact Suite, which focuses on mental health. And we've helped hundreds of thousands of individuals dealing with mental health struggles and challenges in that regard. And in this presentation is a rare opportunity where I get to kind of bring those two worlds together and talk about pornography and mental health and how they relate and what's driving what. And we know that individuals that struggle with pornography that we talked about, and this isn't the presentation to talk about how that worsens our mental health. What I want to talk about more so here today is how mental health or pornography as a symptom of deeper issues that might be resulting from their mental health struggles. I love this quote by Jay Stringer, a friend of ours. He said that if you want to understand why you're addicted to something, you have to understand the conditions that keep your addiction in place. So I want to go deeper. I want to understand why somebody might be turning to pornography to cope with the struggles that they might be facing from a mental health struggle. And to start that off, I want to do a little bit of a thought experiment. So how many of you have ever played this game, SimCity? Raise your hand. How many of you have no idea what on earth this is? Okay, wow, fair. The older individuals in the audience are like, yeah, I played that, right? Can anyone tell me what the object of the game is? And I'll repeat it for the people online. Anybody, like, well, what's the purpose of SimCity? Anybody want to take a stab? Yeah, way in the back. Build your own city, and what are you hoping to achieve with that? Like say it again? Prosperity. You're trying to create a thriving society, a thriving city, a thriving group of people. And so it'll notify you if people are upset or there's too much congestion or there's not enough access to these things. And so you're working to make sure that things are funneling and functioning properly, right? And that's the flow of this game. Now, what if the creators of SimCity took a turn for the dark side and they had created a new edition, because there's lots of editions. They created a new edition called Depression Edition. So the object of this particular game is not to create a thriving and happy and fruitful society, but rather just the opposite. A society that struggles to the maximum possible degree with depression. What would we do, players of the game, what would we do to maximize that outcome? What would you do? Anyone? What's that? You'd give them a lot of substances to numb out, right? What else? What's that? Isolation. You distance themselves from others where they can connect with others, and you'd isolate them as much as possible. Absolutely. What else? Say that again. Okay, so you'd really mess with their identity. I'm just going to repeat. We can, because we'll float around. So you mess with their feeling of self-worth and their identity. Yes. You would try to maximize the conditions that would magnify the opportunity for physical abuse. Anyone else? Yes, right here in the front. You would limit their access to sunlight. Absolutely. You would make them sedentary and indoors often. Yes. Anyone else? Yes. We'll give a couple more. Indoors, yes. Fear, like of the world around them, yes. Junk food, you'd pump them full of processed sugars. Okay, these are great, by the way, thank you. Again, similar to the thought experiment I did at the beginning, again, you can start to see, oh my gosh, we kind of live in SimCity Depression Edition, don't we? Many people are living the very conditions in which the maximum possible outcome of depression is being magnified and optimized, right? We are living where in a way that previous generations didn't necessarily live. And this is creating conditions, what researchers refer to as, we're living in a depressogenic society. Researchers from Clark University and University of Washington described it as a society that places many of its members up to struggle, or as if we're like bathing in risk factors, or we're kind of we're maximizing those possible risks in our lives. So I love this quote by Dr. Lardy, who wrote The Depression Cure. He's from the University of Kansas, and he wrote this book, and in it, he said that our brains were never designed for the sedentary, indoor, sleep-deprived, socially isolated, fast food-laden, screen-addicted, frenetic pace of modern life. Wow, does that sum it up pretty good? Like, we are living in conditions which researchers refer to as, in the last 100 years, we have experienced what researchers refer to as a radical mutation of environment. That you could go back thousands of years and you wouldn't see the type of radical mutation of environment that we've seen in the last 100. Just a massive adjustment to the way of life. And that has consequences, has a lot of benefits, and I bet you all wish that that's the presentation we were going to be listening to, like the benefits. But today we're going to, obviously there are consequences to that type of conditions and environment that we face. I want to tell you a story about the Kaluli tribe, located in the northern hemisphere of Papua New Guinea. And this is a tribe that, as you can see from the image, is a tribe that lives very differently than we live. They live very differently than most the Western and modern world, right? And so they have very little connection and relationship with advances. And there was a man by Edward Schieffelin, Dr. Edward Schieffelin, that wanted to understand whether or not depression was a part of the human genome, part of our genetic makeup. How many of you have ever heard people refer to their depression as a genetic disorder, as something, a chemical imbalance that they just are born with? They lost the genetic lottery, and that's just a fixed outcome for them, that they're going to struggle with this for the rest of their life. Anybody ever heard that described that way? What a depressing story we tell about depression, right? But that's the story that we tell. And so this guy, Dr. Edward Schieffelin, wanted to know whether that was true or not. Is it true that it's just part of our makeup? And if so, I could go to a place that was largely disconnected from modern ways of living, and I would see similar outcomes. And I'll let him say it. He said in his kind of report, he said that despite living very hard lives with none of the material comforts or medical advances that we take for granted, clinical depression is almost completely non-existent, with only one person in over 2,000 interviews who came close to meeting diagnostic criteria for depression. Now, that was one person that came close. They didn't even meet the criteria. So 0 of 2,000 met the criteria for clinical depression. Whoa. What is it here? Like, again, different studies show different things, but like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 individuals struggle with depression. That's pretty good outcomes. Now, okay, if it was a one-off, that would be one thing. Further studies were conducted in areas in South Africa, South America, as well as even among the Amish here in the United States. Again, largely different lifestyles. And they found virtually the same outcome and results, which helped us understand that depression and addiction are what many refer to as diseases of lifestyle or diseases of environment that are preventable. Much like diabetes, obesity, many forms of cancer, these are things that can be prevented. And I think that is something to not only kind of recognize to somebody that is told that this is a lifelong condition and will always be their reality. This starts to kind of poke against that a little bit. And I love Johann Hari, who said that your depression makes sense. Your depression and anxiety are not malfunctions, they are signals. How often do we think about our emotional pain as a signal much like we would a hot stove and our physical pain. Right? If I have my hand on a hot stove, what is my body telling me to do? Change the environment, make adjustments, pull it off, treat the hand, get ointment, whatever I need to do, get the gauze out, get the bandages out, and stay away from that stove with my open hand, right? That's what my physical body would do. But we don't often take that same type of approach with the emotional pain. We keep the hand on the stove, metaphorically, and we just kind of say, it's got to go away. And we suppress it, we numb it out, we just try to turn away, but we don't necessarily get at the roots of thinking through the process of learning that. And I love this approach to our emotional pain, to say think of it as a signal to learn from, to observe, to pay attention to. Cambridge just came out of the study last year, end of last year, where they looked at the association between lifestyle and depression. And in it, they talked about a number of things that were really groundbreaking and amazing. But one of them was that they said that genetics and environmental factors, such as lifestyle factors, are both important regarding risk for depression. However, our study suggests that lifestyle factors play a greater role. Later in the study, they also said that genetics play a lesser role than we previously believed collectively, and lifestyle plays a greater role than we previously believed. Kind of swapping, because a lot of people inherit this kind of this is my lot in life. Again, I lost the genetic lottery, and this is it. And I love Laura Delano, who suffered from her own journey of depression that left her in the hospital multiple times for suicide. And later in life, when she felt like she had overcome that challenge, she was in an interview referring to her 15-year-old self, talking to her 15-year-old self. She says, "Your urge to die is really an urge to live, just in an entirely different way than you know." And I think that was, again, paying attention to that as a signal to make adjustments, necessary adjustments. And we're going to talk more about that here in a moment. Coming back around to how this relates, when we understand what is really causing our challenges, we can get at deeper solutions rather than just treating the surface area. There's a woman by the name of Kelly Turner, Dr. Kelly Turner, who really wanted to understand what the stories of individuals that had overcome cancer, what were the commonalities of those stories? Like, truly overcome cancer, beat it. What were the common stories among those individuals? And she came up with 9 things in her study that were just common threads for people that beat cancer. And this was a really groundbreaking study to kind of say, okay, interesting. These are patterns from those that actually achieved their desired outcome and goal. And we were interested at Impact Suite. We were very interested at this, and we were like, what if we did this for addiction? What if we did this for mental health? And in an upcoming book that we're coming out with, and I was hoping to have it done by now, but it's not, as things go. But in an upcoming book, we explore this, and we interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people in this process. And I'm going to share with you in this presentation, I'm going to share with you 8 key and common themes and patterns of those that overcame addiction and depression. And I'll start with the first one that says that they maintained and regained or regained hope. This was so common among those that had overcome these challenges. In fact, my own niece, who was, again, when she was young, the life of the party. She is, as you can see in here, she's just a happy-go-lucky individual, and someone that you would just never expect to be struggling under the surface. And I was completely unaware. We have a very special relationship. She's my first niece. She's my first niece or nephew. And so we had a special bond growing up. She called me Uncle Fun Clay. And that name is stuck. All my nieces and nephews call me Uncle Fun Clay. Little do they know, I'm not any fun, but that's okay. That's my name, and I own it. So she struggled in a way that was invisible. We didn't know. And she graduated high school. She was asked to grow up and go to college. And at the age of 15, she was diagnosed with depression, and they were told her that this would be a lifelong condition, that the best that she could do is to manage and cope. And that was heavy for a 15-year-old to hear. And after high school, she attempted to take her life on multiple occasions. She was hospitalized. She was on suicide watch. And I'm so grateful today to be able to say that she's still with us and she's doing much better. But this was like just a really tough thing in my family to just see. This is before I had kids, and to see my niece, who was like, I loved her like a child, and to have her struggle like that just broke my heart. And I'm so glad that she's with us today, and she's doing so much better. But she told me in her process that she had lost hope. She had lost it. It was gone, and that she was just done. But for those that overcame, and she had to rebuild and regain that hope is an extraordinarily important component in recovery. Extraordinarily. The hope that it's possible to have better days. The hope that change is possible, that it's an outcome that is within the realm of possibility. If you've lost that belief, it is nearly impossible to find that healing and recovery. Now, we have 20 years of evidence that the brain is changeable and that genes express differently based on what we do. It's called epigenetics, and the brain literally changes based on the experiences and the processes or the environment around us and the decisions that we make. And it's called neuroplasticity. Neuro meaning brain, and plasticity meaning changeability. And we know that the brain changes and that genetics can be activated, certain genes can be activated or deactivated based on those decisions that we're making on a regular day-to-day basis. And this is critical, and this should be combined with the reality that we now know that change is possible beyond just the neurochemistry, but we know that based on certain key decisions that we can make change based on certain adjustments that we make in our lives, that healing is possible, both from mental health challenges and addiction. This should be for the person that was told that this is a lifelong condition, or that once an addict, always an addict, that these things, that these identities that we absorb into us, we can start to question, they can start to dissolve away, we can start to say like healing, true healing is possible. And this should be very hopeful to anybody listening to saying, God, it's possible. I know I can do it. Second thing is that they made lifestyle adjustments, all of them. Now, you might be overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, I look at my life, I don't eat right, I don't exercise enough, I don't get enough sunlight, there's so many things that I don't do at the peak level that I should do. I don't get enough sleep. And so we can get overwhelmed by the lifestyle factors. But what we have found in the research is that even small iterative adjustments in singular lifestyle categories can have catalytic impact on your capacity to overcome and improve. I'll share a little bit about that with you. The Mayo Clinic says that less than 3% of us are living, especially in America, are living healthy lifestyles. I'm not in the 3%, I don't think. Like if I really did analysis, I'm definitely in the 97% there. Kelly Turner, Dr. Kelly Turner, who did the study about cancer, said that our health, indeed our entire lives, can be seen as a sum of all of our moment-to-moment decisions. This includes how we choose to eat, drink, think, feel, act, react, and move and rest on any given day. What people think recovery is sobriety. They're just like, that's what recovery is. I just need to be sober. I need to not do the thing that I am committed not to do. And that's what recovery is. Jill said it so beautifully. Sobriety is not doing the behavior. Recovery, what'd you say, Jill? What we stop doing, and recovery is what we start doing, right? That's beautiful, because when we think about what recovery really is, what the recovery process looks like, it actually looks a lot more riddled with opportunities to change. Meaning and purpose, time management, sleep, environment, mental enrichment, nutrition, quality of relationships, stress management, exercise, financial management, meaning mindfulness and spirituality. That's what recovery looks like, is small iterative adjustments in these categories. And you start with one, and it compounds. And it's not a linear brick by brick improvement, which can feel daunting to people. But what we've found is that it's a catalytic kind of upward spiral improvement for individuals as they start making small iterative adjustments in lifestyle. Let's see. Now, we did, in our study, we found that people who experience lasting freedom from pornography addiction live very differently than those who still struggle. And just to give you kind of a little bit of a snapshot of that, on the left-hand side on the screen, you'll see lifestyle categories that we were taking a look at and sent out surveys around to the hundreds of individuals that were experiencing this. And you can see that those who found freedom are in that first column, those that are still struggling in that second column, meaning this is an important factor for them or important area for them as they improve. And you can see the differentiation right there, the 43% difference between those that found healing and recovery that were already over the line in their minds and those that are still struggling. And that list continues to go on. And we did this for both addiction and mental health. And it was really interesting to see how there were key lifestyle categories that as they made those improvements, their capacity to overcome the struggle that they were trying to overcome magnified and improved. Now, so lifestyle is an important one. Trying to overcome your addiction or your mental health without addressing or looking at key lifestyle categories is akin to trying to brush your teeth while simultaneously eating a sleeve of Oreos. It's just not going to have the outcome that you are hoping to have if you've ever tried it. I would say a similar one is to try to have a house cleaned with 4 daughters. That's another one that I relate with. But bottom line is it's like futile, right? You've got to pay attention to these areas if you're really serious about overcoming. I love Dr. Alex Korb, who's a neuroscientist, and he wrote the book, The Upward Spiral. And he talks about small life changes can help tune even one brain circuit. Just a tiny bit can make a surprising ripple effect on our mood. For example, exercise changes the electrical activity in our brain during sleep, which then reduces anxiety, improves mood, and gives you more energy to exercise and interact with others. So again, it's that cyclical process. Looking at depression specifically, this was a study by the University of Kansas where they looked at a standard approach or a typical approach to addressing depression through that gray line, the control group. And then they took a second group and they looked specifically at making specific and calculated adjustments in categories like nutrition, environment, sleep, exercise, mindfulness, and relationships. And they found that those individuals saw a much more profound improvement in mental health, and it was sustained over time. And that was a huge kind of eye-opening study that has led to further studies around this subject and topic. And I just want to share a couple of things to pay attention to. Nutrition, individuals that made key adjustments in their nutrition found 30% of those individuals, according to this study, no longer were depressed. Individuals that took 3 30-minute brisk walks per week, just like you're trying to catch a flight, something that gets your heart rate going. 3 30-minute brisk walks a week were found to have a similar effect to the leading antidepressants on the market without any other intervention. And again, I remind you that these are single interventions, no other adjustments to their life. It wasn't they were compounding these, they were just a single adjustment. Sleep, Harvard came out with a study showing that individuals that went to bed 1 hour earlier, assuming you're getting the proper amount of sleep, and then subsequently woke up 1 hour earlier, those individuals lowered their risk for depression by 23%. Sleep is huge, right? And again, these are singular. Can you think about as you start to make 2 adjustments in lifestyle, 3, 4, and at the compounding effect, and that's that upward spiral that Dr. Alex Korb was referring to. So, lifestyle adjustments. Number 3, they improved their mental diet and they gained new education. What does that mean by mental diet and new education? Mental diet, thinking about, like, again, we often think about what is going into our bodies from a nutritional perspective, but we don't often think about what's going into our minds and how that's influencing. One of the things that were mentioned as I was going through the SimCity experience is someone mentioned fear. Was that you that said fear? Or someone said fear. But fear, when you turn on the news today, what do you see? There's a lot of fear about this is the election that will determine everything. This is the moment. This is the issue. This is the cause. These are the challenges, and we get all of it all at once because we have such access to information now. In addition to what social media is doing and how it's changing us, right? Social media is a major source for young people particularly, but for all of us, where it's the most common place where youth are exposed to mature content and interaction, and interaction, bad language, extreme ideas, and even become victims of perpetrators and cyberbullying. So what we are doing with our time and how we are experiencing that material that's coming into our minds can have a profound influence on our ability to overcome the struggles that we're trying to avoid. Number 4, and again, these are what the stories that they told us. These are gathered from hundreds and hundreds of interviews and data, and these are the common themes that we found, the patterns. So number 4, they learn how to mindfully approach thoughts and emotions. So many of you are more familiar with this. This isn't as such as a foreign concept to people today. But when we think about this in practice, really recognizing how to separate ourselves from our thoughts. And that's hard. Think of it like maybe weather patterns overhead. The weather can be chaotic, and it can be dark, and it can be sunny, and it can move all around, and it can feel, and if we get swept up into that and are controlled by that, it can lead us down some dark paths. But if we can stay anchored in the valley below and recognize the weather overhead as simply weather, coming into our lives and then exiting our lives, thoughts of inadequacy, thoughts of once an addict, always an addict, thoughts of you're not good enough, thoughts of you should be further along, thoughts of you're not lovable. These are weather patterns that can enter and exit. And as individuals, we're better at that process, and there are specific tactics to deploy that can help you step back from your emotions and thoughts and observe what's happening and let them kind of dissipate over time and move on in a healthy direction. There's things you can do in tactics to deploy for this. But the individuals definitely did that. And again, mindfulness has been shown to decrease depression relapse by 50%. Number 5, they make progress in working through past trauma. We've talked about trauma a little bit today in different sessions, and trauma is a huge one. Trauma is something that if that's a part of your past, that's really hard to overcome. It's really hard to overcome the challenges that you're facing without going back and addressing those issues properly. This quote by one of the individuals we surveyed said, "I didn't realize how intertwined life's traumas and sexual actions were and how they were connected." And we often ask, why are you this way, or what's wrong with you? But we should be asking, what happened? And digging deeper on those issues so that we can understand them better and help them process. And trauma is something that often requires processing with a professional to help you navigate those waters and to do it properly. But past trauma was a huge one. If that was a part of their life, as they properly made progress in that direction, it opened up the gates for healing. Number 6, they deepen their relationship and expand their community support. Community is obviously a huge one. This gentleman said that I spent the last 6 years hating myself, considering myself a monster, a disgrace to society, and a poor excuse for a human being. If I didn't have the people around me that loved me and that supported me. Notice how they're not the ones offering the accusations and the hate and anger. They were the ones saying, supporting him through it. He was the one, holding a lot of the shame of hatred and self-hatred. He said, if I didn't have those individuals that loved me and supported me, I would have never gotten better. And now this particular individual feels like he has overcome this challenge and he's on the other side of this. I now knew that I hungered for a connection with people. My healing came through connection. It came through motivating and encouraging others, and it came through making an impact in people's lives. How many of you feel that way? Like when you are able to participate in helping someone do better or improve in their lives. Many of the people that that represent booths out there, that is what they do, is that they are dedicating their lives to helping people better themselves and improve. And if you haven't spent time talking to all the booths out there, make sure on your way out that you spend that time, because there's amazing resources available out there and representation out there. And a lot of people feel incredible amounts of healing as they go through that process of serving others. Compared to even one generation ago, we're less likely to know our neighbors, to invite friends over for dinner, to join social clubs, participate in a local church or synagogue or mosque, take part in a community or sports league, get married, stay married, and develop and maintain friendships. We are living in the most connected time in all of human history, and we are recording some of the highest rates of loneliness ever. It's an odd dichotomy, and it's something that in isolation, it's really difficult to heal properly in isolation. Dr. Chris said that social media was like a nuclear bomb in teen social life. I don't think that there's anything in recent memory or even distant history that has changed the way teens socialize and communicate and connect much as social media has. Number 7 is that they deepen their spirituality or sense of identity. Now that can look different for different people, but this was a common theme in the research and the data coming through, is that they deepen their sense of identity to something bigger than themselves. I love this quote. I can say that as I began to focus my relationship with Allah and my Muslim faith, my recovery efforts seemed to be magnified and accelerated. That's we hear that a lot, that as people, turn to a sense of something larger than themselves, that they feel like their recovery process is magnified and amplified. I was surrounded by love. This is another user said, I was surrounded by love I had never experienced. Love that was dense and filled with space all around me, that fed the deepest part of my starved soul. I had to stop believing that I was strong enough to pull myself out and stop believing that my intellect would get me through this. We sometimes think that, right? Like, let me figure this out on my own, and then I can kind of go get some support, go turn to my spouse or go turn to my faith. And that often is not a winning recipe. And the final one is number 8, they get outside themselves in a renewed purpose of service and service. We kind of talked about this one already, but service played a huge role as they turned towards others. You will never experience ultimate and lasting freedom until this journey ceases to be about you and become about others around you. This is rebirth, a new heaven, a new earth, a new us, said Nick. So there they are. There's the 3 that came out of some of that research. I'll put them up on the screen one more time. They maintained hope or regain hope. They make lifestyle adjustments. They improve their mental diet and gain new education. They learn how to mindfully approach thoughts and emotions. They make progress in working through past trauma. They deepen relationships and expand community support. They deepen their spirituality and sense of identity. And they get outside themselves in renewed purpose and service. I love this quote. Maybe you have heard this quote or me share this quote, but I love it. It's like the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Right? Recovery is what we're turning towards, what we're becoming. And as we focus on making small adjustments in our life, we are not destined to struggle with these types of challenges for the rest of our lives. As we get to the roots of these issues, and as we address some of these issues, why they're manifesting in the first place, why are our mental health issues manifesting that lead us to turn to things like pornography to cope and numb out from those pain. As we get to the roots of those and make adjustments, our capacity and our power to turn and and address those very challenges like pornography will strengthen and be magnified. And I've seen that in literally thousands and thousands of stories. And it's been so incredible to see that recovery process. And I'm filled with hope as I get to learn from these individuals rather than despair, because I see the bird's eye of hearing from all these individuals. Dr. Alice Korb, he said that everything is interconnected. Gratitude improves sleep. Sleep improves pain. Reduced pain improves your mood. Improved mood reduces anxiety. Lower anxiety improves focus and planning. Focus and planning helps decision-making. Decision-making improves enjoyment. Enjoyment gives you more gratitude, which keeps that spiritual spiral, that upward spiral going. Again, that's from the book, The Upward Spiral. So if you forget everything that you've heard today, and I know that we're running out of time here, if you forget everything you've heard, I hope that you got a sense from the first session and from all the breakout sessions and today that there is hope, real hope for recovery, for healing of relationships, for better days ahead, for a beautiful life, the one that you've dreamt of. These are all real possibilities that you don't have to let go of and think, well, this is just who I am deep down, and I need to accept that. Because that's not the story that we're hearing. And there is real healing, true healing, that doesn't require, people. I'm not a fan of the adage, as you can tell, as I've already mentioned, like once an addict, always an addict. I get this sentiment, I get the idea behind it, that this is something that we need to stay on our toes, and we need to stay fortified, and we need to stay kind of in our lane, and we veer from that. We can kind of fall victim to the very challenges that we faced in the past. But sometimes people, when they hear that adage, that statement, they hear that this is something that is just like, I need to embrace it. Like this is who I am. And if that provides you empowerment to say, like, I need to stay on my toes, and through that kind of phrase, that's how I do it, then fantastic. But what I hope people don't hear when they hear that, once an addict, always an addict, is that this idea that they are stuck forever, that there's no better days ahead. And that I fundamentally reject, and none of the research that I've explored over the years suggests or supports that. So again, there is true healing. And number one, there is happiness. Hope, healing, and happiness is something that we're all striving for, and that we're all trying to provide and spread throughout the world in the dark corners of this world. Hope, healing, and happiness. It's obtainable. It's real. And someday starts today. As you think about this conference, it's great to hear words from a microphone. It's great to participate and sit down and take some notes. I hope that you take this and you go home and you take whatever flyers you've got from the brochures out there and the people you've spoken to, and you take action, not only in your own life, but for those that you love. And you go through the process that wherever you are, whether you're somebody that's struggling, whether you're somebody that knows somebody that's struggling, or whether you're trying to make societal change and you're a part of this larger movement, we want you to take action and start today. Even one little motion. There's another quote I didn't have in this presentation, but the quote, I'm trying to think of who said it, but he said that I am only one, but I am one. Who said it, Natalie? Edward Everett Hale, I got it. Edward Everett Hale said that I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something, and I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. And that's a good message to take, because this issue is daunting. It's massive. It's a Mount Everest in front of us, societally speaking, right? And we can think, what on earth can I do about this? And all we need to say is like, I am only one, but I am one. And we have seen from many people here today, the people representing outside, and even yourselves, that you are one and you're making ripple effects. Just sharing your story is causing a ripple effect of positivity in the world. And we've seen it across the globe where people have taken action and they have joined the movement and they have raised their voice and they've organized events, whatever it was, to have a ripple effect of positivity in the world. And it's so hopeful and empowering, and I love it so much. And for those of you looking for resources for yourself or for, Fortify is a fantastic resource. Fortify, you can go to ftnd.org, fightthenewdrug.org/Fortify to get access to a free resource called Fortify, as well as joinraise.com for parenting in today's digital landscape, a challenging time where we don't have a generational script for how to handle some of these challenges that we face today around screen time and cyberbullying and others. So get those resources if you need those. And again, I appreciate your time and thank you so much, but I hope you go out there and change the world. Thank you so much.